Good evening. I'm Dr. David Horne of the Africana Studies Department at California State University, Northridge. There are two national premier organizations for Black Studies in the United States: the National Council of Black Studies and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Both organizations have recently said that they want to bring more young people into the fold of what they do. They want young people to continue the investigations into the Black experience. There has been a proposal put before both organizations that in order to bring young people in, they need to establish a national student debate competition that will be highlighted at each conference. This evening we are going to present a demonstration parliamentary debate about an issue that is current within African American youth. For the pro side, we have Mr. Joshua Henderson and Ms. Aden Binyam. For the con side, we have Jovon Johnson and Sierra Adams. Mr. Henderson.
Resolved, that the National Council of Black Studies should formally re-identify and realign itself with the 21st century effort to unify the African continent into a union of African states. In other words, that NCBS become a forceful and strategic part of 21st century Pan-Africanism. After all, at the birth of the Black Studies movement in the 1960s, virtually every one of the student-led groups demanding the creation of curricula-based Black Studies programs had as one of their stated goals the re-energized and non-colonial teachings of Africana studies and the relinking of the Black movement for political consciousness with the ongoing African liberation movement on the continent of Africa. Many of the student leaders and activists then understood that as Africa goes, so does the situation of African descendants in the modern world. A failed Africa equals a failed attempt at reestablishing respect for Black people globally. Thus, reading and analyzing the works of Kwame Nkrumah, Sheikh Anta Diop, Frantz Fanon, Thomas Sankara, Julius Nyerere, Walter Rodney, Amilcar Cabral, and many, many others was considered crucial to a real university education and learning the differences between UNITA, the MPLA, TANU, PAIGC, the PAC, and the ANC, among many, many others. These were a significant sign of one's connection to a global Pan-African movement and not just the local affairs of the day. Black Studies was not created as a neighborhood or regional entity. From its outset, it has always had aspirations for a broader, more comprehensive inquiry, from before Kemet to post-colonialism and beyond. NCBS as a flagship of Black Studies in academia should not, and indeed cannot, limit itself to just Ferguson, civil rights, and domestic hip-hop. The United Nations just officially declared 2015 to 2025 as the decade of African diaspora, so NCBS, as the official voice of Black Studies, has to, at a minimum, keep up. In fact, there is no Black Studies without Africana Studies, according to no less than W.E.B. Du Bois and the Honorable Marcus M. Garvey, who I'm sure many of you have heard of today. NCBS was started as the guiding light for the proper and positive study of African people. And in the 21st century, NCBS needs to double down on that initial approach. AGOA, or the African Growth and Opportunity Act, although having troubled beginnings in regards to its initial goal, is up for renewal in the U.S. Congress this year. NCBS can and should be leading the charge to help get that renewal done, since it will significantly help African countries move forward. Up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. We are and we will ever be an African people challenging the status quo for our rightful, dignified place in history and the progress of the world. To those who disagree about my assertions, I pose to you this question: how can we as proponents of Black and Africana studies advocate for the inclusion of Africana-centered curriculum and attempt to learn about our history, but not work towards the betterment of the continent that we study? Thank you.
Resolved, that the National Council of Black Studies should not redefine and realign itself back to a global Pan-African identity, Listen, we are not Africans. We are Americans of a darker hue. Almost none of us can trace our families back to any particular part in Africa, and we, virtually all of us, we don't speak any African languages. And when we get to go to Africa, they always call us some kind of white Negro tourists. They don't know us, and we don't know Africa. We know right here. No matter how many books Dr. Nkrumah or Frantz Fanon we read, Black lives matter right here, where we live, and we need to stay in our own lane. Black people here need serious help getting by just day by day, just staying alive. Trying to live while black is a dangerous proposition these days, as it has been for quite some time living in America. Africa can't do anything about that. Having an African president contact President Barack Obama about Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Reed, or Ezell Ford will not matter. It's nothing that they can do for us. So why in the world should the National Council of Black Studies dribble away whatever little influence that it has by focusing on African affairs? Africa is a mess. Over 2,000 girls just recently stolen away and abducted, probably raped and sold into slavery, then 2,000 or so villagers murdered. This is all in Nigeria, Africa's most populated country and one of its most leading lights. The Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan, has not been able to do anything about it in his own country. The African Union, the Pan-African organization for the continent that is working on unifying Africa, couldn't do anything for those girls or those families. So why should the National Council of Black Studies and Black Americans put in any time or effort to deal with Africa? Africa cannot deal with itself. No, we are Black Americans and not Africans. Their situation and their affairs are not our business. They're quick to tell us, for instance, that we worry too much about white people, that everything is not about racism. They say that their history with white people has been different and that it's okay for some white people to be a part of modern Pan-Africanism. Whites can be Africans too. Well, fine, then just leave us out. Because we have to deal with the white people that we know and not the ones that the Africans think that they are dealing with. Africans have their troubles, and guess what? We have ours. Good luck to them. But our history was different here than theirs, and so will our futures be different. The National Council of Black Studies should focus on the study of black people right here. We still need a grand narrative of our own history and culture right here where we are. Yeah, okay, up you mighty race, but right here and right now. The National Council of Black Studies better do a better job organizing black people as far as politically. Also, how to be more respectful of each other. They should be promoting more black progress. The National Council of Black Studies better get more black people to graduate from college and to get good jobs. The NCBS better do the job that it was created to do better than it's doing and not waste time and resources on African issues that are not germane to our lives here and that we can't impact anyway. Africans don't care what we think, and why should they? They are 3,000 to 6,000 miles away. We have limited time, limited resources, and limited attention spans. We need to focus on what we can do for Black Americans. Africans are on their own. Sorry.
It is a known cultural fact that ethnicities living in countries other than their own home territories are essentially treated and regarded decently or badly based mostly on the international reputation of their home countries. Thus, when China was seen as a gigantic, poor, and backwards country, Chinese in America were subjected to the American Chinese Exclusion Act and various other indignities. When Japan was seen as an enemy, Japanese Americans had their property confiscated, and many of them were put into concentration camps. All of that has changed now that China and Japan are recognized as international forces to be reckoned with. Black people here and in Central America, South America, Europe, and in the Middle East will similarly be treated better when Africa is unified and recognized as a world power, rather than as individually weak countries as they are now. We in the U.S., with access to a $1 trillion resource unheard of by Africans elsewhere, with educational opportunities other black people can only dream about, can help Africa get to its unification goal. One Africa uniting all 55 countries into a federation, union, or confederation. We only have to decide to do it, to help, to teach, to work with, to prepare African people here to reunite with their African brothers and sisters. We can all learn new languages. We can socialize with each other, get to know one another better. The job of NCBS as the voice of Black studies in the USA is to spearhead that movement forward. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Pan-Africanist who understood the necessity of Black Americans reestablishing their linkages to African progress, as he said so after his invited visit to Ghana's first independence celebration in 1957. Malcolm X was a Pan-Africanist who worked to reawaken Black Americans to their African familyhood through his Organization of African American Unity. The list of such African Americans leaders is long, and they are part of the tapestry of study that NCBS advocates in American colleges and universities. In 2003, for the first time in 400 years, the African Union, representing all of Africa, invited the African diaspora to return home and help Africa blossom into the future. Those invitees included African Americans. In honor of the Free African Masons, the Free African Society, and the many, many African-oriented churches and our past and present, like the African Methodist Episcopal, AME Zion, and etc. It is time for NCBS to stand up and redefine our African selves. We are and we will remain African people. The only issue is how and what ways we will collectively help African people develop into a brighter future. We intend to be dual citizens in Africa. We intend to have someplace else to go when we need or desire it. Without that option and without our deep involvement in making Africa an international force to be reckoned with, there will be many more Michael Browns and Eric Garners.
Exactly where my esteemed colleague got her cultural information on Japan and China is a mystery, but I will not quibble on that point. Sure, we still have some African in us. Sure, we helped end the apartheid in South Africa, the colonial attempts by Italy in the 1930s, and we financially and physically supported the African Liberation Group in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Some of us will always find time and resources to provide such help. And our African Studies curricula at various colleges and universities will continue to promote that. All well and good. But we must acknowledge, nevertheless, that we have gone from Africa too long. Except the color of our skin, we are no longer even recognizable as Africans. NCBS members trying to wear more dashikis and gailies is not going to change that. The organization should steer away from its present Black American single-mindedness. That's who we are. And that's who we should study about. And that's who we should work to provide better lives for. Omowale, the child returns home, might sound good on a DVD and on YouTube, but we are not going back. Why even bother putting in time and resources where they will not get the bang for their buck? Those who want to risk dual citizenship, more power to you. But do not tell me that is my best option. Too many African Americans have already gone to the continent, and most of them are now stranded there with no way to get back home. Virtually all those transplanted Black Americans, Jamaicans, etc. are not citizens of any sort of Africa. They have serious difficulty earning a living, their health care is not sufficient, and there's another Ebola epidemic around the corner. No. You can keep your African interests in your 21st century Pan-Africanism. I want the NCBS to teach me how to organize the Ferguson citizens, 2/3 of whom are Black, to politically organize themselves to seize power in that town so they can become the mayor, the city council, and all of the policemen. In 2013, Black males had a higher imprisonment rate across all boards of all age groups than any other race. Black males were imprisoned at rates at least 2.5 times greater than Hispanic males and 6 times greater than white males. What does that say about our people? I want the NCBS to focus on training another generation of community activists who can change lives for Black folks here. We can't just wait for things to change. We must change the things we can no longer wait for. NCBS has a mission, a purpose, and an agenda. Prepare us, teach us, expand and clarify our visions, and promote our agitating wherever needed to make this place better. NCBS does not need to, nor should it entertain redefining itself as a 21st century Pan-African organization. We are not Africans. We are Americans of a darker color. If 59% of African Americans, including males and females, are imprisoned, what does that say about the overall African American population? What is the interest in Africa if African Americans, our fellow friends and family, are thrown into a corrupt country which our ancestors built? Although Africa is prospering from a dark time, history repeats itself. NCBS should center their studies on the fraudulent society us African Americans live in an attempt to reside with a solution. Not only a solution, but bring upon leaders who can help prosper our youth from a deprived country. What happened to our compelling and dominant African American leaders that changed this country for African American people? The NCBS should intensify their studies and work on bringing forth students that can help change the country we reside in, not a continent halfway across the world.
Thank you, Josh, Aden, Jovon, and Sierra. Good evening.